Well, South Africa's investment drive could be derailed by load shedding. Some economists fear the power cuts could see the country downgraded to junk status. Others say small businesses will suffer the most. For more on this, we're joined by economist Mike Schisler now. Mike, if you could just take us into the rolling impacts that the country could face if Eskom continues with the load shedding that we're seeing currently.
Well, at the moment on stage 2, it's about 5% of the economy every time that doesn't have power. And we're in a modern economy where most sectors need power. And if you look at it like that, then you could say that you could have a severe decline in any quarter where there's a lot of load shedding at this sort of stage 2 level. Furthermore, obviously, everybody is watching us very, very closely at the moment to see what happens with the new president cleaning up corruption and fixing the state-owned enterprises. But investment, even from South African firms, is going to stay away if you have load shedding on this sort of scale.
What can we look at in terms of the drastic action that could make sure that, Eskom gets to power in terms of delivering some of this power well into next year?
Well, we're all going to have to save electricity again. That's number one. Number two is Eskom's going to need some form of bailout. Either us as consumers are going to have to pay a lot more, or us as taxpayers are going to have to put up money for Eskom. Either way, it will cost a lot of money, and it will take time to sort out. In the meantime, we could for example, bring in power ships into some of our harbors to try and smooth things. And we could ask that the independent power producers are allowed to produce more power where they possibly can to help us over this time period. But at the moment, basically it boils down to that the costs are going to increase for South African consumers or South African taxpayers, both of which are basically the same people.
CEO Phakamani Kgathebe telling Parliament in the last week that, the debt could go up to about 600 billion in the next few years. Is there a bailout there for the country, given that, we might not be able to afford it with the fiscus we currently have currently?
Well, to put it into perspective, Eskom owes about 420 billion now, which is about 10% of the economy, if you measure it like that. They produce the electricity that we pay for is about 5% of the economy if you look at it like that, yet the value that they add is very, very small. So it's unlikely that they're going to be able to carry this debt burden of 420 billion. If that debt burden gets bigger, which it is going to do, and that's quite right that that's going to happen, it's going to go to 600 billion. It makes it even more unlikely that Eskom will be able to survive this. Without drastic measures in place, i.e. cutting people, cutting the price of the primary energy that it gets, increasing our prices as consumers, and or getting a bailout from government. So ultimately, we're stuck between a rock and a very dark place.
Some energy analysts have actually said that maybe consumers should get off the grid, but that wouldn't be good for Eskom, given that they need the tariffs to keep running.
Yeah, that's right. And the higher the price goes, the more people are going to be looking for alternatives. The problem isn't necessarily me and you, the small consumer. The problem is definitely when we look at the larger companies and they start looking at switching away from Eskom. We've already seen where a Sasol becomes much more energy neutral. It can supply as much energy as it receives. And I suspect that other places will soon start going that route as well, via, say, natural gas supplies. So Eskom is in really hard rock because if they sell less electricity, the debt doesn't go away, their costs don't go away. They have to increase the price ever more to the fewer remaining customers that there are. And that's going to put a lot of strain on the South African economy. And again, like in 2008 onwards, stop our growth.
And just quickly, there was a 25% increase in terms of municipal, debts that came through for Eskom. Municipalities not paying some of their debts. 17 billion rand in interest in terms of those debts as well. Can government plug that hole in terms of making sure that Eskom gets that money? And can we have systems in place to make sure municipalities don't fall back on payments?
I think we should, but the problem is that many of the municipalities where this is happening are very, very poor. So we're going to have to get a place where the users in those municipalities pay Eskom directly, and then Eskom will supply them directly. We're also going to have to be on the other side a little bit harder on people who don't pay. So unfortunately, either the government is going to have to stick to a thing where they pay the municipalities for the people that do use their electricity, albeit a small amount, and then not allow people to use more than that. But again, that will hurt Eskom, but it will also hurt Eskom if they don't receive payment for the power that they provide these municipalities. The big problem there is most of these municipalities have had corruption, but they're also too poor to make up those losses. And that is a huge problem, because South Africa is going to get downgraded if we just pump money into there from the rating agencies, which will make the debt burden even more expensive again, because interest rates will rise, obviously, when the rand falls under those circumstances.